Welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
I Create Daily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. I Create Daily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their art. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora, and our guest today is Phil Singleton. Phil is a web designer, SEO expert, and an award-winning author. Since 2005, Phil has owned and operated a digital agency based in Kansas City, where his online home is kcwebdesigner.com. In 2016, Phil and John Jantz of Duct Tape Marketing co-wrote the book SEO for Growth, the ultimate guide for marketers, web designers, and entrepreneurs. Phil's book, SEO for Growth, is an Amazon bestseller and has been listed as a top marketing book by Forbes and other prominent media. Phil has also created a WordPress plugin called WP SEO Schema that has been downloaded over 100,000 times in just the last year. Phil's latest startup venture is Podcast Bookers. It's a service that helps marketers and executives get booked on established podcasts as a way to develop authority and personal branding, improve SEO, and most importantly, generate new leads and sales. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, ladies. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And so we're obviously going to get into all the SEO and all the things you're doing now, but how did you get started doing this?
Well, I have a really unconventional path to digital. I went to school for finance and then rolled out of, actually got a D in computer science, which is kind of funny. Makes me kind of the poster boy for if he could do it, anybody could do it type of a guy. But my first job out of school was in insurance, and I didn't realize after I felt really confident in college when I got out, I would be this really anxious person stuck in a cubicle. But pretty soon after like 3 years, I just figured this job was not for me. I was moving down somebody else's destiny that wasn't mine. But I ended up, long story short, just kind of over a couple day period, quit my job, sold everything, and moved to Asia. I ended up living in Taiwan for about 10 years total. Early in that journey, I met my wife, who's from Taiwan, Vivian. But I ended up going back to grad school after we met, and then back to Taiwan and Asia for like 10 years. So totally change of direction, I guess I just figured I needed something I didn't want to be one of these guys that I was working with in the company that had been there for 20 years and living in a beige, building, in a beige cubicle that didn't look too happy. So I did that, and that changed everything for me. Put me on a new adventure. But at the end of that 10-year stint in Asia, I actually had like a software company fall into my lap. That's a whole nother episode for you guys. But that was the time, this is like the early 2000s, where I was introduced to like digital online selling, affiliate marketing, all these kind of online pieces that I really didn't have much experience with before. But my time at this software company, I saw how powerful Google was. And it stunned me because, again, this is a software company that fell in my lap, but I was running it. But I was the guy writing checks to people. And I saw that every month we were writing these $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 checks to these affiliate marketers. And I was like, wow, why is that happening? And I found the reason was because they had forums and blogs and things that were out there where they had graphic images up that people would click on, come to our website, and we ended up paying the big ones about 50% a sale, and it really racked up. We were just one of their affiliate marketers. So, this is a common affiliate marketing. Obviously, online is a common way to make money, or it was anyway. But it was really eye-opening for me, and that's what really woke me up to like digital and the power of Google even back then, because I saw, wow, they really have a stranglehold on the purchase process. So moved back to the States in 2005 after we sold that company into Kansas City, where I am now, because my family has roots, and really to come back to kind of start a family, and my wife liked it back here too. So, but what happened there was it was a nice payday when I left, but not like could retire at 35 or something. But keep in mind, I was still not very versed in, I wasn't a graphic designer, wasn't an artist, wasn't a coder. But I figured I needed to do something because I didn't make enough in my stint there to kind of retire forever. Ended up doing a barter deal for an auto detailer, where I basically promised the guy, made a promise I didn't know I was going to be able to keep, which is make him a website. 2005. Had no idea to do it, but I was like, hey, I know this thing about Google, how it works a little bit. I'm going to make you a website. In the back of my mind, I was like, should I be doing this? But then I figured if I failed, I would just reach into my pocket and have somebody else build the website. But over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I figured out how to get the ugliest little one-page website up for this guy. And about 2 months later, he calls me on the phone and says, Phil, I don't know what you've done. You've changed my business. You've changed my life. My phone's ringing off the hook. This guy that was making $25 a car, selling directly to dealerships who were paying him nothing, was now selling auto details to higher end cars for $100, $200 a car. So total game changer for him. But for me, when I got that call, I was like, wow, this is the most professionally rewarding thing that's ever happened to me. And two, I was like, oh, I think I can make money doing this. So it was that one kind of barter thing where I woke up and I was like 35 years old. I know what I want to do when I grow up now. And that's be a web designer and help small businesses out. So that one little barter thing's kind of rolled into where I've come today. Just I did a few more barter deals, got a few people to say nice things about the work that I did. Then I was able to start charging people and then charge them more and then hire some people. And boom, here we are.
Right. That's amazing. And there's so many angles that we can get into. You have been like an original gangster of the internet in it from the beginning, and you've gotten to see this whole industry change. So a big question that we have and our audience will want to know as well is, as a content-centric SEO and web design specialist, what are some of the tips that people can, like the top 1 to 3 tips that content creators online can utilize, given that now we're in a Google that's much more mature than it was in 2005 era Google, and what can they do to start gaining traffic on their sites when they're not necessarily SEO marketers and not really versed in that world?
Yeah, I think the biggest couple things that missed opportunities for a lot of folks, and that is one, for whatever reason, I think people still think of their website as almost kind of the static digital brochure. And what drives me a little bit crazy in general with everybody is they tend to put like their best content up on somebody else's platform.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the shelf life of a post up on Instagram or Facebook or even Twitter is very short. Then it kind of passes through the river and it's gone. And it's never documented in a place where somebody like Google can go crawl and then serve it up as an answer for somebody's question or a solution. So for me, I think everybody should treat their website as a marketing platform and as a place to document all their content. So, and then share it outward so then people have to come back to see the rest of it. Because when that happens, some magical things happen. One is a social signal from that site, a click, a targeted traffic comes back to your website. And then people are able to maybe share it from there, and then maybe they're able to engage with it and stay it and send more signals to Google. When that happens, the search engines like that, and all of a sudden they might start to look at your page as an answer to a query for something, and then the magic really happens, right? Somebody's looking for a how-to question or product or service. But a lot of people miss this opportunity because they don't treat their website as a place to document all their best content and things. They put it somewhere else just for the moment. And they think, okay, it's just kind of a one-dimensional, let's get what we can have it right now, and they don't look at their website. So it's almost kind of like, still for a lot of people, it's disconnected. But I think your website should be your marketing platform and the center for all of your content. So that's my biggest tip. And surprisingly, you guys obviously are advanced content marketers. You're doing a lot of the things you should be doing, but most people aren't. Most people kind of set up a website because they think they have to. It's a sunk cost of doing business, and they do things sporadically instead of tying it all together into a central hub, which is your website.
Well, that means it's a great opportunity for the people who are going to take action on this to really start developing before everybody's doing it. And obviously there's a niche market for everybody. And I think you're so right, because we get into the instant gratification of posting something on a social platform because we get that instant feedback, whereas the website can take some simmering on Google's end before you see the results you want. And so I think that kind of traps people in this. Exactly. Well, I get instant results on Instagram because I get 25 likes if I put a photo up and 15 hashtags. Mm-hmm. But
there are a few other questions I would like to get to that answer thing for our audience, but I also want to get back a little bit to your story relative to, I mean, one of the things that's fascinating, like I create daily, it's about creators, right? So anyone who creates something, and that could be, in your case, you're an entrepreneur. You may not be like a novelist or writer or a visual artist, but you create products, you create business, you create industry. And in particular, in your case, you've gone from one thing to the next. Like you created the WordPress SEO plugin, and you're now are creating a platform for people to get booked on podcasts. So share a little bit about your journey of creating within business.
A lot of it just comes from, and I think I've thought about this just even recently, like why I seem to invest in certain things. And it's because it works for me. And then I figure a lot of times, even the things that I sell right now, it's just a matter of what's working for me. And I'm taking a system that I've developed for myself and like selling it to other people. So, for example, on the podcast booking example, I initially thought I was behind the game and was with getting involved in any type of podcast. And I figured to start my own, I was just like, gosh, I was one of these guys who back in the, like there are a lot of right now, I think, that think podcasting might be a fringe marketing tactic or not as many people are doing it until you do it. And you're just like, oh my gosh, where have I been? But I was one of these guys, like, I don't think I'm ready to start my own podcast. Is there any other way I can get involved? And this is going back. You have to understand is I wrote a book with John Jantsch of Duct Tape Marketing. So he's a Wall Street Journal bestselling author. He's been podcasting since 2005 or 2006. He continually has preached that his brand he attributes a lot of the success of it to his early involvement in podcasting for a lot of reasons. One was the access he got. He had a show and he asked Seth Godin, will you be on my show? And back then he was like, yes, we got all these people like Guy Kawasaki, and all of a sudden, so it really helped his thing. And that didn't really dawn on me till the third or fourth time he said it, I think in a presentation. I was like, wow, that really does strike me. He keeps saying that podcasting has been like a central part of how he was able to build his entire brand. So then last year I figured I got to figure out a way to do this because everybody's talking about personal branding, authority building, and this seems like a great way to get involved. I didn't want to build my own podcast because I was too scared. I thought it was going to be too much work. It's work, but it's like anything. It's not as much work as you think, just like writing a book is. Yeah. But I figured with the podcast booking, if I could get on somebody else's show, then I could spend a little bit of time, not have to drive anywhere, and essentially they do a lot of the work. And I was like, and I saw these episodes. I didn't really understand at that time that, because I wasn't a big podcast consumer, that it's common in the podcasting space for people to put show notes up on a page. Well, a big thing in SEO now and for a while has been guest posting, which is you try and get your content up on somebody else's site. Well, that's getting kind of spammy, loud, and noisy. It's also hard to write 1,000 words out or 500 words and then try and place it and get rejected and place it and get rejected. And when you do, all you really get usually is, if you're lucky, one link back and maybe a bio. So it's not like it's a great personal branding authority thing. But when you're on somebody else's show, the show's about you.
Yes.
The content's about you. Yes. The show notes are about you. And you can go in and talk for 20, 30, 40 minutes and give your best advice. And all of a sudden, people that are doing the show, the hosts, are doing most of the work after, right? Yeah. Them or their team. But the idea is you're not doing most of the work they are. And I was like, this is absolutely fascinating that I can do this. And the best thing about podcasters is that they're already advanced content marketers, and their websites tend to already have stronger Google signals than a static site because there's great content on it. They're publishing it out. It's more higher production value type of content. It also does something really interesting for a website, is that it increases the dwell time. So if you share your episode notes out and they come back, just a few people clicking and listening or watching for a while is a huge signal to Google saying that this is quality content because we're staying longer. So I saw all these things and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing that's ever happened to me in 12 years in terms of bang for the buck. Yeah. I can get on somebody else's show, them do the work, get exposure to their audience. They introduce me as an expert to their trusted folks. I get a backlink on their website. I get a whole show that's about me. And in terms of like personal branding, you'll see if you type Phil Singleton or something, a lot of my podcast episodes are like starting to come up, which again reinforces the authority. So that was like, holy cow, I'm onto something here from an SEO standpoint. The other thing that I've done that was magical on that was, after every episode that I'm on, I send a review link out and I ask the host, will you review me in terms of the value of the knowledge that I've shared. Well, 9 times out of 10, they've reviewed me and left me a Google review up. So I went from like 70 to 130 reviews in less than a year. Wow. I mean, just that alone is worth so I really and that's just kind of the story of, I think, being a content creator or somebody that's trying to 10X something. You do a podcast, you do a blog, you do something, or you don't want to do it like one dimensional. It's not just about that piece. You got to take a step back and see how many things can I get out of this so that I can spend as little time as possible and get as much benefit. So that's what got me into the podcast. Guys, I did this, I started doing it more and more. Tons of benefit that was coming out of it. I'll give you one more even on that was, sometimes people don't transcribe the show notes because there's some cost involved. Well, a few times when they don't, I ask people, well, do you mind if I transcribe them? So I've been transcribing notes that people don't use, and then a couple of weeks later, posting it up on my website as a guest post, giving a link back to them, optimizing it. And I just got a free 5,000 word blog post out of it. And the first one that I did, podcast SEO benefits, I think it ranks number 1 on Google globally.
Wow.
And it's the transcription notes from somebody else's podcast that I was on. So I've done that a few times. So it's these things where you kind of come out, it's like, oh, wow, am I looking at all these type deals? So you asked a kind of a loaded question. I went through pretty deep on that, but it was that's what happened is I ended up getting on a show, seeing all the value that came out of it, trying to figure out a way to extract more value out of it, and then saying, hey, this is working so well for me that I think I can bundle this up and create another business off of it and do other folks. So for me now it works awesome because as part of our whole engagement is like, okay, we do websites, we do SEO, and we do this whole thing that I want to explain about, a little authority building piece that you're going to love. But the end of it is trying to get guests booked on podcasts based on and building their own authority. And the beauty is it's almost like we're getting them to do some of our homework for us.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're part of this engagement. And now they're going, getting booked, saying all the right things, getting backlinks to their site, helping us with the other thing, and they're getting involved type of a deal. But that's how it happened for me. So it was kind of a serendipitous thing. It worked really well for me. I found a way to bundle it up and package it, found somebody else to execute, and then it works. And it's working we've got a couple dozen clients now. So
Right. Well, that's fantastic. I love how your mind works. You really look at the bigger picture and leveraging, and how to leverage, make the most out of the effort and the activity.
And it's not something that all marketers are naturally good at. There's a lot of marketers who they like to niche into their specific area, whether it's SEO or social, whatever it is, paid advertisement, whereas you seem to look at this big picture of the industry and where it's going and how you can sort of scratch your own itch. It's like the classic scratch my own itch and then create a product, and bam, I've solved a marketplace problem that I discovered through doing, and then I discovered other people needed help with it and would pay for somebody to do it.
Yeah, and we were talking about some of what you said just the other day, and that is we do get marketed to regularly, emails constantly from people looking for backlinks from our site. We will write an article for you in exchange for this backlink, and you're right, it's gotten really prolific out there and not very effective for anyone. And then we started, within the same week, we received 3 applications, so to speak, to be interviewed on our podcast, all 3 from SEO people. So it made me wonder if they had been to some SEO conference recently talking about this as a great backlinking strategy. But for our audience who doesn't know anything about that, what you're describing that's very helpful for them, and that is if you are a content creator, if you are a writer and like to write, if you are an artist, that traffic to your site from other sites is one of the top things that Google looks for to boost your own site's ranking and viability as something valuable to send people to. So that's a great strategy where they can still, it's still there, right? So in particular, if like we know somebody who's creating a website for authors to write even a short story and gift it for free is absolutely worth it in terms of getting traffic back to their site as well as exposure to their brand. Would you say? Would you?
Totally. Yes, totally. And it's, I think you see how the guest posts are getting pitched to you. It's very cold and spammy. You get pitched also probably by podcast booking services, but it's a little more personal. And hopefully the ones that are approaching you are saying, there's an angle that we have for your audience, or at least you can see the angle. And it's a lot different to come in a real person to do it than somebody that's been hired, maybe VA overseas, to just keep sending guest posting type things over, where there's a real expert to come in and share some stuff. So just by nature, it's a much better way, much more trustworthy, much higher production value in terms of being a good content marketing tactic, but also just for SEO. I mean, there's so many benefits. You don't want to just think of it just for SEO, because there's a lot of other things, but it's just like anything these days. I wouldn't want to do any form of content without thinking, am I losing an SEO benefit out of this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't want to do anything for just SEO, but I wouldn't do anything without having SEO in the back of my mind, because there are some truly awesome benefits that if you just tweak things a little or think about it or a different way. And that's why I think we're part of my, the reason I've become pretty good at trying to figure out multiple angles for one effort is the way Google looks at stuff. They literally have 200 ranking factors. They're trying to go out and find everything they can about somebody, their authority, where they're published, how many different places you're in the right kind of directories, if your information's consistent. You know, they're looking at all sorts of different ways to try and figure out if somebody's legit. Well, if you just kind of get into this Google mindset, it really does help you, I think, in marketing in general, because you can not get so, I think so many people are still have the tactical blinders on that one piece of that one launch. They don't think about all the other things that if they fit it in. I'd love to get a really good example of this. I think will really help for your writers, pretty much everybody. And this is one tactic that's worked for me time and time again. It worked for me first and then my clients. And that is blogging is still really central to inbound marketing and to SEO and marketing in general, because we want to build our website to be a marketing platform. And if you're blogging consistently, you've got something to share out consistently that people will come back to from your social media channels. But there's a tactic that we use that really helps out in multiple ways. And that is we never really blog anymore unless we're blogging in a series of 10 to 15 posts. So you get 15 posts that are standalone posts, right? But if you think about each one of your series or your content themes in terms of a book, then you can start after 15 books, stitch them together and have a nice ebook that can be then spun up into an Amazon Kindle. Now you are becoming an author, a published author up on a proven platform that again elevates your authority and personal branding. You get an author page up on Amazon. You get awesome backlinks from your author page. So it's nice, not a silver bullet, but it's a really nice one because you can plug in your RSS feed. But now you've got a book and something you can create a nice one sheet off of that you could then start to pitch yourself to podcasts to start getting out there and elevating your authority. So it all comes back, but you can't just, if you just start, you buy into blogging and you just start blogging once a week, well, the whole thing breaks down because you can't stitch together 10 random blog posts and then do this personal branding authority campaign off of that. But again, that comes back to the Google concept of, can we step back, take a look back, take our actions and think about them ahead of time, and then make sure that we can get as many benefits as possible out of this effort. Because for not a whole lot of extra effort, just by thinking about things in terms of, can I come up with a book in terms of a concept and schedule it out, you've got this whole thing that you're writing almost in your sleep. Mm-hmm. And now you've got a piece of content that you can use to kind of start building authority off of. And that works for almost I think it works for basically everybody. And we got landscapers that are doing this, writers that are doing it, B2B people, and it really kind of works in the whole process.
Yeah. It's amazing how much just having a book, regardless of if people read it, increases your authority in people's eyes, whether you're a fiction author or a nonfiction author and you're building expertise around a topic. Just saying, oh, I have a book, immediately it's just like, oh, they're an expert in something.
And I also think, I was talking to another client that we're going to be doing this for, when you're able to take a book and hand it to somebody, it's like subconsciously you're proving that you can execute a project. Yeah. It's like in their hand. It's like you got it together. The credibility is all there. So, but what most people don't know, in fact, even myself, before I wrote this book with a group of other marketers, was like, wow, that's a career bucket list thing that sounds nice, but it's almost like an impossibility. But it's like anything now. It's a lot easier than you might think. Amazon, Create Space. There's all sorts of gigs out there that can help you pool stuff. And again, if you're pooling this into your regular content marketing efforts and you're blogging as you should be, you're basically writing a couple of books a year if you're on a good disciplined campaign and creating content on a regular or maybe even daily basis.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. We're definitely doing that. And again, there's that leverage factor, and we talk about that in some of the things that we write about distribution strategies, content distribution strategies, and how you can create so many other things from the one thing, from whether it's social media or podcast topics, or like you said, a book. So that's really great advice. One of the things, but as you were talking, I was wondering about visual artists. So like if they're painters, photographers, does anything come to mind immediately relative to that for them? I know that they can write articles, and they do, but relative to their main body of work, which is either a photo, an image, or a painting kind of thing, does anything come to your mind for them?
Well, I read actually just recently, and I'll try and find this link for you guys. There's a fantastic article up on one of the SEO sites by a guy who's basically suggesting SEO content marketers to create their own book of essentially stock art and offering it away for free so that people will use it and then attribute it back to their website because they've used that piece of content. So for some of us that aren't photographers, so for a photographer that's doing this could easily probably go out and create a small book of maybe niche topic type for marketers or whatever, and then optimize it a little bit or spread it out in communities and say, hey, because everybody's blogging all the time. And this gets into my plugin a little bit, but if you do schema on your websites now and you mark it up as a blog post, well, it requires a featured image. So everybody's always usually looking for some type of a graphic image to attach to a blog post so they can spread it out. Well, if you're an artist and you're a photographer and you can easily kind of go out and create some cool things with little Lego images that are related to a specific niche like marketing, you could all of a sudden, maybe put up on your website 100 images and tell people, hey, these are free if you give me the attribution back to my website with a link on it, right? Now all of a sudden you can get tons of really good backlinks back based off something that might not take you a lot of time. I have the plans to do this, but I'm not a photographer, but I figure I could probably make something cool enough where I could use this and test this out, but some folks are doing it. So if you're an artist, then that could be something for an artist that is creative with graphic design and Photoshop, but obviously a photographer. That would be one tip that I would jump on that I'm actually going to try myself pretty soon. Fantastic.
Now, how would they, so artists, there is concern sometimes about plagiarism. Like, in other words, they might take the image and not give the backlink and not continue to give tribute or credit to the original source. Is there any way to embed in that image besides naming?
That's something that's a little bit outside of my, I think if you're creating something for the, most people that I see that are using it on legit websites are going to give you the attribution if they choose to use it. But would it be worthwhile for some? I mean, you're probably going to lose some that way, and it probably wouldn't be worth it to do it. So,
but I think you're right. I think overall it's.
And I don't know. That's I'm the wrong person now. There might be some ways, but if you had some way to lock it down, would it be worth the effort and time to do it versus just say, hey, some people are gonna not give you the attribution.
Yeah.
For the
honest content creators appreciate that there's images that they can use for free on their site. And so
I think that the scammers would be few and far between for sure. So I think that's the main point. Because we have had a recent SEO guest, which will probably air before yours, we talked a good bit about keywords and introducing our audience to the concept of keywords for those who aren't familiar, which are actually quite a number. I know we weren't when we first got into building websites. We were totally clueless about how, if you were going fishing, you needed to know the right bait. What are people searching? It's like what Google wants is what people want. It's what their audience wants. It's what people are searching. And so that's what they try and cater to. Along those lines, we've been, so our audience has been exposed to keywords, but one of the things that has been coming up for us a lot recently, we tune into Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm not sure if you're familiar, and he's on a rampage about voice. Everything's going to voice. And he said recently that voice was going to kill SEO. So, because it's going to kill search, right? So I'm wondering if you've had that conversation, if you thought about it, and what will happen to search as we know it today when it becomes predominantly voice. In other words, Alexa, search so-and-so, or, Siri, search whatever. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it is going to be probably the way to get certain things, but most people that really want to do research aren't going to be satisfied with one answer coming from voice search. So voice search is really good for certain things when there's only like one answer for. But if you're doing research where nobody's just going to give up my ability to, because the power of Google isn't the top result. It's all the results you're able to kind of look through and everything you're able to kind of see and sand through. So I think it will kill for certain things, but for the way most people use Google in a commercial sense of trying to figure out, I got to do some research in order before I make this purchase decision. I don't think it's going away probably for a long time, but it might. I mean, I think voice search is really important. And in fact, one of the reasons I built the plugin was because you have a better chance if you apply this extra layer of schema code to your website for the search engines to want to pick yours as an answer. So that's one of the reasons why we have it. But I think it's a little, and obviously the guy has a pretty good record and he's popular, but I think that's a little, I don't think it's a blanket statement for everything. It just doesn't seem like it'll work like that. Yeah. But otherwise, we're all going to be working for one spot on that. So we'll kind of see, I guess, how that plays out.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's sort of like, it works if you're doing like, hey, Alexa, I want to order pizza. And they pull up your closest local pizza deliveries. And
where's the number for my Panera bread on? Then there's only one answer for it. I mean, that's going to kill that search because people are just going to do voice on it.
Right. But something like, I don't know, a research topic on health or something. That's something where you want to look at several opinions. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah, who's the best home builder in Kansas City? Well, it's ABC Construction. Really? Okay, then that's it. I'm not going to look for any more. Plumbers, all that stuff. So I think a lot of the things are still, going to be text. But I think voiced in for sure, but you're still going to probably look and scan and search for things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Makes a lot of sense.
So our audience is aware that they need to get content and write content and start being aware of the SEO benefits and getting into Google. And so how long does it take to start gaining traction, assuming you have your consistent content plan and a strategy for actually publishing and getting it out there?
So it's kind of a bit loaded. Generally Google will say a new campaign. They've got a video on this that I can send you to, where they'll say, hey, if you're hiring an SEO person, you're doing SEO, 4 to 12 months is a cycle of, where you start seeing improvement, minimal improvement. And of course, there's a lot of companies that come to us that have like a lot of uncorked SEO value because they've never really had SEO done on their website. And they just got some simple things they haven't done, where we'll come in and like just uncork a bunch of stuff. And it looks like they went, but the reason was because they actually had a bunch of stuff holding them down. So the potential was already there. Versus somebody who maybe is just getting started or hasn't done any of it, might take a lot longer to kind of build that up. But in general, I mean, you start, if you really do your keyword research, and this gets back a little bit to how Google has changed. When we first got with Google, it used to be people, in order to scam and get, results for minimal effort, it looked like a website looked to me like a short wave where lots of pages with shallow content. Mm-hmm. Well, what ranks more now is narrower websites with deep content. Mm-hmm. So you'll see guys like, there's a very famous guy in SEO called Brian Dean, Backlinko. And he recommends 1,800, 2,500 word posts. He only blogs like once or twice a month now versus trying to get out every week type of a deal. Now, there's a trade-off to me on that piece of it, because if you're a small business, having a 600 word blog post every week feeds your social media, helps your book effort. So there's still a balance in some, but in general, longer form blog posts show authority. They take more research. There's more quality in them, especially when you break them down and have things like video or audio, numbered lists, bullet lists, cross links to authority websites. And you really kind of do think that like a guide style. Those tend to rank really good. Google will look at them, especially if you do any type of distribution out to social media. And if you can do a little bit of a backlink building to it specifically on a site, that could really help somebody in a niche get content ranked in a relatively short period of time. Although again, if you're going after something very competitive that already has lots of great content, it might take you longer. But the stuff that wins today is niche websites. You know, it's hard to create another Amazon that ranks for everything, but people that focus on like a specific type of art or a specific type of content and really focus and commit to that and create great content around it. And again, make the website the hub and do your social media. But, you know, it's one thing if you have a great post, you know, sharing it out to Facebook via the link is almost the same thing as putting the post directly on there, but it makes people come back to the site. So, I mean, that's all got to be really documented there to the best extent. And that's how somebody can do it. Now, you guys mentioned keyword research. I think that's so underestimated even still to this day, because a lot of marketers right now talk about, you know, your ideal customer and doing all this stuff to figure out what the persona is. Well, I don't think you can truly know who your ideal client is unless you know how they search for stuff online, because that's their brain thinking of a word at the exact time they want to think or search information. If you don't know how they're searching, how can you truly know who your ideal client is? And then once you have that list, it's like, oh my gosh, all the stuff I should be writing is right in front of me. So people are like, what should I write about? What pages should I create? Well, good keyword research, it kind of just makes itself known to you, because you'll see things grouped together and you're just, oh my gosh, I need a whole page on this, or here's a vertical I didn't even think about. And all of a sudden, web design, page structure, you can re-engineer these things, and even your whole content strategy around the way people are searching. And that to me is like the magic trick of SEO, because most people will build a website as a digital brochure and try and do SEO on it afterwards. Well, you're a little bit late to the game there. I mean, you can still do it, but if you can really do that before you start building the website out, it's a huge competitive advantage. And a lot of this still comes back to keyword research. You get guys out there saying that keyword research is like deprecated or not as important. I think it's more important than ever. If you know how people search for stuff, I mean, that's a really powerful thing for pretty much everything that you do online.
I 100% agree. In fact, we started out with our websites without knowing any of that, and we're just kind of doing it casually. And when we started getting serious about it, it made all the difference. Now we have a portfolio of monetizing websites, thankfully, just because of finally working with, we did do it after the fact, going back and re-keywording over time.
Which created a dip on 2 of our sites, just because it was like Google was already realizing, well, these guys aren't optimizing, they're not really consistent.
Or you might have started ranking for things that weren't like your ideal piece, and you went kind of recalibrated it, and you had a dip that way.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It shouldn't be underestimated at all. The importance of keyword. So what tool we're using? Keyword Finder. What tool do you use?
Well, my favorite one is AdWords Keyword Planner. It's a free one inside there, because that's the tool that they use for people to create your AdWords, but it gives you specific information about how people are searching for organically. So, and that's, Google's the source, right? I use SEMrush and Ahrefs too, which are two paid things, but they're very powerful in terms of getting some good keyword information. And also just doing an organic, once you get like a short list, doing some searches and looking for the words that people are using on the paid AdWords will help you. And then looking down at the bottom to see the related searches. I use that a lot to kind of grow the list out. So just kind of being and looking at people, how they're actually the ones that are ranking, what they're using in their title bars, and kind of using that in its totality to kind of find some stuff out. But those are my favorite. I'm going to say AdWords Keyword Planner is probably first, and then some of the paid tools, and then just doing a little, because it's like funny. You think on Google, just the search results, there's actually a lot of really good keyword information just on the page that you wouldn't think about unless you kind of look at it with a different set of eyes almost.
We started out with Google AdWords keyword tool, but there were 2 things that were wrong about what we were doing. So much of we're really big on ready, fire, aim, and so we did a lot of implementing of the keywords that got the most searches without knowing anything about really paying attention to the difficulty. So that was the one mistake, the first mistake we made, and then the second one is Google changed so that unless you were actually an active advertiser,
you see a lot less info now unless you're paying them.
Yeah. So the information is too scattered, too broad rather, to be of as much value. So from that standpoint, there is another tool we'll mention for our people, I think, and we'll put it in the notes. I think it's it's not Keyword Keg, I think it's Keyword Anywhere, I think, but anyway, I'll put it in the show notes for sure for folks.
Another good one, just in terms of content, maybe to some extent what you should write, but keyword too, a long keyword would be answer the public. So
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what people are searching for and how to and why and that kind of stuff. And then writing content, actually optimizing for it. That's a great tool too.
Yeah, and that's a good, and you mentioned earlier about the importance of websites, people not realizing that, that is their, that's their foothold, so to speak, in the World Wide Web. That's their access, their approach. It's sort of like, your home, and making sure that if you're going to have guests come into your home's going to be clean and you're going to be ready. Or if you have a place of business, you're not going to not go. If you have a retail store, you're not going to not go there every day. You're going to go there, you're going to tidy up, you're going to make sure that the merchandise is presentable. And it's really the same thing with our online websites, right?
I mean, Google, I don't think people realize how, it's like a $700 billion company, which means I can't remember. I used to look like every week. But it's really amazing to see the most valuable companies in the US now. It's usually the last year or 2 years. It's been like Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon, which is pretty much the entire internet, right? It's the way you buy stuff and search. But Google in particular, there's like 5 billion searches a day. It's 70,000 searches per second. And it's really just become, I think, a monopoly and part of the purchase process. It's not like one of these things where you're spending time socially or watching some stuff for entertainment. It's actually like part of the purchase process. You can go out to I've got a Best Buy down the street where I've gone occasionally. Most stuff I buy on Amazon, but you see people like Google searching the thing in front of them before they buy it. It's just amazing. They're like almost everywhere. And it's just become almost, I think people still kind of take it for granted that they've got that much power over. So you spend a relatively short period of time on Google and a lot more time on social media. But when it comes down to actually purchasing stuff, that little bit of time or searching for information, trying to educate yourself is worth a lot more than all that like social and entertainment time you spend on some of these other websites. So it just can't be underestimated. I think at some point they probably need to have a little bit of regulation, but people worry about how much Facebook knows about you. Google's like scary. They know everything.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, and your original client base there in Kansas City, the brick and mortar businesses, just like online, people who start a website can often neglect the website. Their brick and mortar businesses do the same thing. They put up a website and they ignore it because their main business is brick and mortar and retail, or whatever component that is for them. And more, just back to your point of the searching in the Google, they need to have a very strong website presence online in order for people to recognize them as a valid business and find them, when they're searching in the area.
Yes. One thing I always like to mention, because I think it's my biggest hack that I've talked about this year is, and most people don't realize, is Google has an army of about 15,000 independent contractors that they call search quality evaluators. Okay. And they pay them, I don't know what it is, $10 to $20 an hour. And their sole job is to manually have a human check the algorithmic search results that are served up. And they've got this unbelievably cool document called the Google Search Quality Evaluator Guidelines. So you search it online, and the first thing that comes up is the PDF. It's a 160-page guide that Google uses to train their search quality evaluators. And these people are just regular people. They're not rocket science. They're not trying to it's just is this a quality search result or not? So you download this document that's free, and it literally goes into what the search quality evaluator should see in terms of evaluating a quality website. And it gets remarkably specific in terms of what should be on there. So to me, it's oh my gosh, I just got the answers to the test, type of thing. So check it out. Even if you read the first, the chapter headings, it's amazing because they talk about this one abbreviation is EAT, and they say it 50 times in there. You must look for expertise, authority, and trust. And here is what we mean by that. So it's just oh my gosh, we're telling you. And it's you need to be able to see on the website testimonials, reviews, a phone number, an address. You need to know who wrote the content. We want to see enough content. So they talk about a satisfying amount of main content. They just go on and on. It's specifically that's what they're using to test their own algorithm with human beings, right? So it's like, if they're telling you these are the elements that you need, as soon as I read that, because they've had them around for a long time, but they didn't release this document until about 2 years ago. And they updated it twice last year because of all the fake news, political, all the stuff that happened with the internet was already like not very trustworthy, and it became a lot less trustworthy. Right. So then they doubled down on how they evaluate trustworthy websites. And it's just really amazing because you look through this stuff, all of a sudden I totally redid my website based on the trust quality, the search quality guidelines. And it made a huge difference because it's all about now stacking up the third-party proof on your website. So then all of a sudden you look at my website, kcwebdesigner.com. I don't really come out and just do this digital brochure stuff that most people do in terms of, here's my products and services, here's the history of my company. It's like video testimonials. Here's the book that I wrote. Here's the association badges. Here's my phone. And it's all the stuff that shows proof that I'm a trustworthy entity. And It really worked. My traffic went up, my conversion rates went up, and it's just an amazing document that if you read through it.
Oh, and speaking of which, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to come back to your website because it is fantastic. It is so clean, engaging, simple, clear. And like you said, your phone number is right there in the top right corner. Really love the graphics of the people holding the signs that you can click on for each section. So it's, it's wonderful when not all, the painter's house always needs painting quote. Well, right. So not always is the web designer's site the best, but yours is the best. Yours is great.
Well, I don't know. It's just, I don't even think of it like that. I appreciate the comment, but if you scroll down that and you're looking for, if you look at my website, and I just told you EAT, expertise, authority, and trust, you scroll down top to bottom, it's just stacked with expertise, authority, and trust. You know what I mean? It's got all the stuff. It's got all the elements. So if somebody from Google were looking at it and be like, is there EAT on this website? They'd be like, check, 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 check. And that's really what the main goal is. And the more that we do this, they talk about blog posts and educational, it's all that stuff. It's all on there. And it takes the guesswork out of what stuff should I put on my website. Because we just design and market the way Google. You got to give Google some credit because they're a huge company that makes a ton of money based off high quality ads that point to web pages that are good, that make people money. So there's just got teams and teams and billions of dollars going into this stuff. And they didn't, when they put that quality rater guidelines out, it's not like they just did it on a whim. I mean, there's people that are spending lots of time on that and updating it all the time because those are the things they want to rank websites because they know that's what works in terms of creating this kind of sites people want to engage on and buy stuff from. So I think there's a lot more power into that reading it when you read through it. And it's a long document, but if you read through the first couple pages, I think it's like fascinating that they give that much up and nobody really talks about it that much. But I think it's one of the coolest things out there in SEO.
We're definitely going to be checking into that.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and that sounds like Google's version of the what was it, the invisible shopper, not invisible shoppers, but like the undercover shoppers who would go into stores and buy stuff, but really they're just undercover going through the experience. That's what that reminds me of.
Exactly.
Mystery shopper.
Yes, mystery shopper.
Mystery shopper.
So what are the 1 to 3 things that produce the best results for your business? And it seems like that was a big one, going through that Google guide, but what are some of the things that you do?
I think podcasting is great. And the reason, quick story on this, I figured I've got all this great stuff, never done any outbound marketing. I hired a person to make like 50 phone calls a year last year, just hang up after hang up. It didn't matter what we did. I just figured we chose stuff like, well, it's just really hard to say, can I build you a website?
Yeah.
But then I figured, hey, you know what? Let's try and amp the give up higher and higher to offer somebody something. And it took still a lot. But then I was like, well, this is time to try this podcast out. So I didn't create my podcast, the Local Business Leaders Podcast, in a way that really elevates my authority as a developer or an SEO person or a marketer. I did it more for the benefit of the target guests that I have that could be an ideal client. So when we in Kansas City call up a larger or medium-sized company and say, can I have your CEO on the Local Business Leaders Podcast? Yeah. Can we build your website? No. Can we interview him on this show? Yeah. And then all of a sudden the response rate like shoots way up. Yeah. And now I have a chance to kind of talk to somebody, get their story, share it out here locally. But also I get that time with an executive. And one of the things that I've done I thought was kind of clever is my first episode on my show is 5 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And it's really all about me saying the kind of questions I'll ask in the ebb and flow. But in that first 5 minutes, which is really short, so people tend to listen to it ahead of time, I say, please submit a bio to us. Here's the bio that's read about me as an example on the shows that I've been on. So here you got 5 or 6 seconds while they're a captive listener, really listening intently, about the skills and the things that I've done, which really makes them. It's really hard to talk to somebody, but when they're listening on a podcast or an audio, you got that one chance to come back. So by the time, so a couple of times now it's worked where it's like, I go through, I have a little chat afterwards, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't realize you guys did this. Can you help us out type of thing. Right. So finally that was a nice like Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Right. Where I'm giving a lot of value. We're going out, we're spreading it. They're actually on the show. It's not an advertorial thing, but it's still at the same time, it's like this thing I've been talking about. Like, let's make sure that we do stuff and get multiple benefits off of it. Yes. So I don't think it's disingenuous at all because we're giving it and we did it, but it also enables us to make that initial relationship. And after you talk, like we're talking now, I feel like we start to have a little bit of a relationship. You can't get in an email or a cold call or something like that. Right. So that's worked really well for us this year, is to try and do some outbound, because I felt it's really hard for us to do anything outbound unless you've got something very powerful as a giveaway or something that you're giving to somebody. And this seems to really work for us quite a bit. I'm trying to think what other is a really good, I've got a couple other things that's worked. That's probably been the best. My getting guested on shows is now our SEOs, our first referral source. Then it's like happy clients refer, give us secondary projects. And now it's listeners of podcasts that I've been on. Mm-hmm. And it's been fairly substantial. I mean, the last 12 months, we've had at least probably over $200,000 in new sales. So we don't do millions of dollars a year, but we're we do decent. And to do this stuff with all the extra benefit and get an extra $200,000 in revenue on top of it, which I would do, has really been, I guess that's why I'm like so passionate about it. I got a business and we're really, I do like at least five shows a month now. Wow, that's my entire content marketing thing. I do my own shows where I go out once or twice a week and I'm guesting on other people's shows. And that's been a really big lead generator for us.
Yeah, fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. So one of the things, since we were talking about creators, our brand is I Create Daily. Do you have a daily creative structure, since you're such a productive entrepreneur and you've created that plugin, the podcast and all these other things? Do you have a consistent daily creative structure?
I have such a, I don't know if this is a personality thing or not, because I talked to some of the people that are on my team. I'm the opposite of people that need to focus on one task and get it all done. Yeah. I just kind of work when I'm productive. So I'll just work on something passionately and then stop and switch gears, but I think drives a lot of people crazy. But it works for me. That's something, I'm sure there's some kind of a name for that. But so no, I don't really. I just kind of work when I'm passionate. I take a break when I'm I go throughout the day, and my kids are home from school. So that's the nice thing about having a semi-lifestyle job is really the only reason I have an office now is because it's summertime. I can't work from home, so I got to have some office space. But no, not in particular. There are certain things I do. Like I've got another really good tactic that works for my agency, which I do on almost a daily basis, and that's working with another writer, is creating top 10 lists. Mm-hmm. And I've got another website that we do this on, but it works phenomenally well because we'll go create a top 10 list of best, whatever it is, best plumbers, best HVAC, make a little badge for it, post it up online. Then we'll go on social media and tag those people that we shared it on, and they go share it, and we get tons of engagement. Mm-hmm. And then they'll take the badge that we created with them a few times, put it on their site and link back to it. So I've got this property in Kansas City now that ranks for hundreds, at least probably over 100 different highly competitive terms. Yeah. So if you type in Kansas City plumbers, Kansas City roofers, it's these local top 10 lists that are ranking. So that's working really well for me now because it's a separate type of a brand, but it pulls a lot of people in. It ranks like crazy, and it's a great inbound generator for us. But I got to keep creating the top 10 list. So that's one of the things that I do on a consistent basis is I'll come up with another list for somebody and type them out and purposely pick those, have somebody write it for us. They're sending them in. and I'm kind of tweaking them to optimize them and posting them up because it's been so I have that part of it. So there's a little bit of a writing component, but a daily thing, other than that, is more kind of a mixed bag, doing podcasts but daily, you're making me think here. Do I really do anything in that?
Well, and it's sort of like it could be like a schedule, like a certain thing that a certain time you get up, or a certain routine or ritual, and it may not be. I mean, like, you described that what works well for you is doing multiple things or jumping around, and that could be it for you.
Well, I do wake up really early. I pretty much wake up at 4 a.m. now, almost all the time. Never really used to wake up after 6 o'clock, but 4 to 5. But I've been getting up at like 4 o'clock all year. Part of that's just because I used to be miserable in my job, and now I'm really passionate about it because every day is like exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of, it gives you a rush type of a thing. And I get a burnout, and there's certain things I don't like about the job, but that's when I can pull off, do something out, play with the kids, come back in when I feel motivated again. But yeah, if you're going to pick one thing that I definitely think waking up at 4, I feel like I get a full day of work before 9 o'clock, which makes me feel like I can do whatever I want the rest of the day. I can work some, do some other stuff because I already got a full day of working.
Yeah. And the phone's
does that count? I don't know.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's fantastic. And the phone's not ringing, and you're fresh, and it's quiet. It's a wonderful time to create. Are you waking up without an alarm? Just automatically? Yeah. So that's like a natural thing. So I love that. So we have kept you longer than we promised. Do you have a couple minutes? Okay. You just have another couple minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So every entrepreneur has struggles. So is there a challenge that you're currently wrestling with?
The very hardest thing for me, and the reason why it's hard for me to scale, is because I'm a little bit of an introvert by nature, and I don't know, communication. An introvert, people talk, get out, and they get a little bit kind of ranty and spazzy, I guess, it's sometimes. But man, the person part of this business of hiring folks really takes a toll because I get so I don't know, it's just hard for me. So I've had a couple problems like hiring the wrong or just getting invested with somebody that it really didn't work out, and it's hard to kind of, I don't say not get rid of them, but I mean transition out and that kind of stuff. So the hiring part of it, the working with folks in the business, I think is a harder thing for me, hiring and firing. I think because if it doesn't work, it's so devastating for me to figure out a way to let somebody go. That it's that's hard. So that part of it's really hard. So I guess I'm not the type of person that'll ever have like a 50-person agency type of deal. But I find that part of running a business really awesome. And I got some people that work for me right now that it's to get through, have to hire 3 or 4 people to get the one person is so hard. And for me personally, because I'm so like invested in that piece of the business, that's just I'll probably always be a constant struggle because of my personality. And I've had some stuff. I mean, I had one that worked with a couple of years that I found wasn't really being as kind to my clients as it was to me. Devastated me. I mean, I don't lose sleep off of losing a client. We come get clients, and we move clients, and they move on for reasons. But when you have somebody working for you, and all of a sudden, it's customer service and being nice to people should just be like, you never miss on that. Right. I mean, if we failed because you didn't like the website or because the SEO wasn't where, that's fine. But we should never feel like you were being treated mean, rude, or unprofessional. That just drove me. I mean, so that's something I really, really never lose sleep over anything, but that's something that makes me lose sleep is like those kind of issues.
Yeah. And were those in person, or were they like overseas VAs, or some of
person,
both?
some full time, person.
All right. Well, you're probably familiar with the concept of putting your dreams and visions out there. Sort of helps make it come to be the more you say it or write it. So do you have any dreams? Do you have a long-term vision where you want to go in the next few years, or just some vision that you're working towards?
I love the model that we have here in Kansas City, which works really great, but doesn't work for scaling. The thing I'm most excited about right now is kind of that top 10 local thing that I was talking about. I've got it working really well here in Kansas City. We've got top 10 lists and it ranks, and I'm right in the middle of taking that property and actually turning it into a local print magazine. The first run will be like 10 to 15,000 copies. So it's kind of weird to have somebody that's inbound making something print like that. But I think there's a huge opportunity for niche magazines that tell local stories and that kind of stuff. And I really want to take that and bring it into other cities once we 100% prove that model, because I found that it's, at least for local marketing, I think as I mentioned before, a lot of the top 10 aggregator sites like Yelp, Home Advisor, Angie's List, there's just a ton of them that are crowding out some of local home service, even retail type stuff. But what I found is the one property that I built, if you make it really local, get lots of local signals, lots of local traffic, it can outrank even these really powerful aggregator sites. So my vision for that is, okay, I know the online model's working and we're already outranking some of the big players here in Kansas City. If we throw a magazine on top of that, which again is going to help SEO, because if we do it the right way, we can drive people back to the website and get more local traffic and local signals. And if we can take that model and then scale it out into other cities, that's something that could actually be really, really big. Yeah. So that's my dream going forward, is to try and take that model and make it like an entrepreneurial windfall type of a thing. But the same, it's funny, I've done a lot of these things. I create podcast bookers, and I've got this blogger local thing that I'm working on. At the end of the day, KC Web Designer pays the bills, but I'm always going after a bigger swing at something, just because it seems like everybody that's an entrepreneur does that, right? They've always got one or two side hustles going. And my big thing now is I had so much on my plate that this year I'm making sure, like I had the plugin that I had, did really well the last year, and people were like, when's the pro version? When's the pro version coming out? And all this year I was getting so far behind on everything. I was like, I just got to start knocking these out. So finally we relaunched the pro version of that plugin, like I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. That got done. I had this local magazine thing. I was like, I've been wanting to do that since I interviewed the guy that I want to have on the cover end of last year. Now I'm just like, we're doing this in July. So I'm just kind of this year committed to all those things. Like, you have this thing, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And you've got half-built websites out here, but this year has been the year of actually finishing some of these. So yeah.
We can totally relate. I mean, creators create, and entrepreneurs are always enterprising something. So, well, this has been fantastic and helpful, but we did want to close with you sharing a little bit about, you mentioned the WP SEO schema again. So for anyone who's interested in that plugin, can you just give a little description of what it's about and who would benefit by it?
So a really big thing with SEO and search right now is voice search is one. And then also, if you look at search results, how they've evolved, they become much more rich with information. So you'll see knowledge boxes coming up, your knowledge box for your company profile coming up. But even within search results, you see star ratings, event times, more information is coming up. Well, a lot of that is because of the extra code you can put on your website that tells Google and tags what it is. For example, you see star ratings come up in results a lot now. Well, Google won't go to your webpage if you have a review that isn't a quote that says something. They won't guess and say, hey, this was a review from somebody. Let's take that information and show it up in the results. Unless you've got this extra layer of code, which they call structured data, where you can tell Google on the page that there is a review in a certain format. And you have to give them this specific information in the code that's like, they rated it this many stars, it was by this person, it was on this date. And so to put this code on the website, there's a couple different ways to create it that were not very user friendly, especially even in WordPress where you had to use short code. But the idea is that if you can do this consistently with your pages, you can increase the chances that you'll get more information to show up in the search results, and maybe even get better chances to be a voice search result if you get up in the top. So what my plugin does is it provides a way for you to easily add schema code for all sorts of different types of data. So if you've got a review, there's a little field form for here's the review things you got to put up the reviews code on this page. If there's a video, there's video schema for that. And there's all sorts of little things you can. It's almost like for any of your listeners that use WordPress, a popular plugin for the basic SEO is Yoast SEO.
Right.
Well, this is a similar concept in that it's form filled and you just go out. It's just that if you want to tag your page as a blog post, Google has a set of code called blog post schema. You can literally, type in the fields of what they want. And all of a sudden now it's like, okay, you've got that schema markup for that. So that's what my plugin does. It enables you to basically tag your website. And when you do that, Google has a lot more confidence in the type of contents, and it gives them more context to what it is. And when they have that extra layer of confidence in the type of content that it is, they're more likely to put more information up in the search results. So it's a little techie and geeky, but I made a very easy form fill plugin for that anybody can use that's familiar with at least kind of the Yoast level of, filling in information. And we put up a free version up on WordPress.org. And we've got a pro version that's a lot more automated and takes a lot less time up there too. But check it out. It works. It's one of those things, same. It's like I couldn't find one that did what I wanted to. And I knew this was not only important to get more, because if you get a star rating up in search result, your click-through rate goes up like 20 or 30%. It's amazing if you get it. But it was so hard to do it. I can't find one that does it for small bloggers or local businesses. So I just basically made my own. And then I was like absolutely stunned that so many people started downloading it. But it was like one of these things where, we're only like 7 people. So I literally was getting phone calls from people all over the place saying, can you help me with this free plugin? I was like, it's free. But now we've got a pro version to like provide support and stuff, and it's up there. But that's what it does. And that's the reason why we did it.
Okay, so if someone already has SEO Yoast, then this would be something that they can download and use instead, or would they?
Oh, it really uses in conjunction with it, because Yoast is really more for the main, like the page title and the meta description and the top stuff. This is more if you wanted to like tag, if you've got reviews on there, if you've got a video, if you put this extra layer of code in that, like a page, you're maybe more of a chance that a thumbnail will come up in the video search results and that stuff. So it works with Yoast. It just enables you to put a little more, SEO code on a page by page basis.
That's good to know. Does it work as well for content sites, authority sites? Okay, that wouldn't be like review centric. It would still work.
Yeah, schema is something that it's whatever for a lot of the types of content that's on a website. Like for instance, for a blog post, there's blog post schema. For a recipe, there's recipe schema. For an event, there's event schema. So any of that stuff you might have on your website, there's probably another layer of code. And it's not really just Google. It's actually schema.org. There's this whole that all the search engines use on this standardized vocabulary. And then Google just adopted it several years ago. But yeah, for pretty much almost every form of content, there's some level of tagging. And the way I look at it is you're almost like, Google doesn't know what kind of animal you are. So the schema code, when you tag it, says, hey, Google, this is an arm. This is where the head is. This, what I mean? It enables you to kind of give the anatomy of the page a little bit. So they take the guesswork out of what kind of content you have on the page. But it works in with Yoast. And if you don't use my plugin, use somebody's, because it really does. When you go into SEO, I find very few people, surprisingly, are even doing the basics with Yoast SEO. So if you imagine how wide open the field is for schema, almost nobody's using it. Everybody wants to get into voice search. This is the way that you can kind of stake your claim earlier, I think, if you do it. Yeah. So that's another reason why we did it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do it. Yeah. We're definitely going to do that.
I'll send you a free pro version one. How about that?
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. So do you have any closing thoughts to share before we let you go?
Just, think of your website as a place to document your best content. Because if you do it over time, you're going to naturally create a lot of traffic and SEO value. Don't, think of it as like your journal for all your best work. And I tell people also, it's like, I'm so deliberate about making sure that people that are happy in the short period of time that we're together can document something and give me more third-party proof. So you just get in the habit of doing this kind of stuff, because rankings and reviews are like the holy grail.
Yeah.
And if you think about reviews, they're actually extremely rare compared to the amount of transactions that people have. So if you see something on Amazon with like 400 reviews, they might have had 40,000 sales. True. The amount of people that actually reviewed it, but they're so influential in the purchase process that you almost have to be like deliberate and be like disciplined about making sure that you're trying to get whoever is willing to review you all the time so you can stack the deck. So it's really, really hard to get. I think they're incredibly rare, given the fact that everybody uses them every single day for almost every purchase. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's my parting thing is, man, work on your reviews, because it's every time we take a local business here from 0 to like 80 reviews, it changes everything. Yeah. It changes everything.
Absolutely. It makes so much sense. So speaking of which, we hope folks will review this podcast and also go and get Phil's book, the SEO for Growth, the ultimate guide for marketers, web designers, and entrepreneurs. Take a visit to his website.
And use his plugin. Download Yoast and then go download his plugin.
Yeah, WP SEO Schema. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
Thanks, ladies. That was really awesome. Thanks for letting me carry on so long.
Oh, thanks for doing it. Okay. Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.